You're listening to the Fitzrock Podcast, interviews where we explore the shifts and transitions of life. Here are your hosts, Keith Rock and Don Fitzsimmons. Hi, everybody. Today we're really excited to have Misty Hughes with us. Misty has developed some leadership coaching seminars, classes, whatever we want to call it for women especially. And we're excited to hear more about that. Misty, thanks for being with us today.
Thank you, Don. Thank you, Keith. Glad to be here.
So, Misty, I'm very excited for you to be here today. And you, we had a previous conversation where I learned a lot of incredible things about you. Why don't you help fill that in for the rest of the people listening today?
Okay. All the incredible things about Misty hour, right?
It is.
If you can fit it in that time frame.
maybe 2 minutes, right? No, well, Keith, I had mentioned when we talked that I had been on a journey for a number of years in the development and implementation of a nonprofit that reaches out specifically to single moms in the Kansas City metro area. And the passion for that came out of my own journey as a single mom, raising 4 children, desiring and longing for community and connection. And so the nonprofit that I developed, which is called the Single Mom KC, and operates again here in the Kansas City metro area, was really birthed or grew out of my own journey as a single mom. So I guess my biggest claim to fame at this point in life is that I raised 4 children as a single mom who are now beautiful, functioning contributors of society that love well and live life fully. So that's a woo big deal for any parent, right?
Absolutely.
So anyway, and I guess the other fun tidbit about me is after 22 years of being single, about 1 year ago during COVID, I got married. And so I'm on a new exciting journey of learning how to, love my husband well and serve him with excellence. So, yeah.
Well, that could be podcast number 2, right?
Oh, there you go.
Misty, what were some of the challenges that you faced as a single mom that caused you to say, you know what, I want to help other single moms get through these things?
Yeah, I think, as I mentioned, one of the challenges that I found in my journey was just a place to belong. And if you look at studies and, information, Brene Brown, all those things, having a place to belong is vital for us as human beings. Feeling like we're accepted, that we matter, that's safe is vital for our well-being. And so finding that place was always a challenge. I'm an extrovert, so it wasn't as big of a challenge for me. I take initiative, I do things, I engage. But what I found is for single moms, that's not the typical story. Many of them are, dealing with their own issues of shame and rejection. They're busy and they're exhausted and they're just trying to, keep their head above water. So finding a place to belong, knocking on those doors or finding the right church or finding the right community group is exhausting. And so creating that space for other single moms to come to not only strengthened me and my family, but also made a place for other women to grow and develop as individuals and as moms.
So what did the space look like that you created?
Well, the space always looked like home. And it it started in my home, in my living room, around the kitchen table, 5 to 10 women. Quickly it grew to 20 or 30. Then we, found space in churches or, other event spaces that could accommodate us. But it was always based out of hospitality. It was always welcome home. It was always important for us to greet women at the door right when they came in with a smile, and looking them in the eye to let them know that they were welcomed and they had found a place to belong.
Wow, COVID must have been really challenging for you.
Yeah, it was, but we had an incredible team in place, and I love to think outside of the box. And so it was really fun to gather the team and say, okay, how do we continue to stay true to our mission in spite of the hindrances? And everybody just jumped on board. We started live streaming immediately. We did Zoom Bible studies, Zoom prayer meetings. We were on Facebook Live every day. One of our leaders was every day. So single moms knew that they had a place to connect and they could still find resources and encouragement. We partnered with other businesses to provide food for moms. One church that is our partner ended up contributing $1,000 a piece to over 125 of the single moms affiliated with us. So it wasn't just us that was providing. Our partners and the community really surrounded and supported us as we continued to provide support and a place to belong for single moms in the community. It was great. It was exciting.
Sounds like it. So it sounds like faith is a strong component of this.
Absolutely.
How did you manage women coming from different faiths or belief systems or things like that?
Jesus never held the door closed to people from different backgrounds or anything like that. And we don't either. It's not about where someone's coming from or what their faith background is. It is about, hey, you've got a place to belong. And so we have a clothing boutique that single moms from all over the region come to, where they get free clothes, jewelry, accessories. And yeah, there's never any kind of questions asked, or anything. They just are greeted with love and care and support.
Wow. Okay. So now a little bit more about you personally.
Okay.
You said you were a single mom for 20 some years. How many?
22 years.
22 years.
Yeah.
So you navigated all the changes that your kids went through
all
by
of them.
yourself. Tell us about some of those challenges for you.
I think I had 2 girls and then I had 2 boys. And probably as a single mom, I grew up in a single mother family with 1 sister. And so probably one of the biggest challenges, or one of the biggest fears I had, was raising boys to become men. And I didn't feel like I had a grid for that. I didn't know what, a true man looked like, because all of my paradigms about men were very flawed. And so I had to clean up my thinking, so that I could, and I think one of the greatest things I did was learning who I was. And so as women, if I know who I am, if I'm comfortable and confident in my own skin, then that gives me a space for, my boys at the time to grow into who they are as men. And I made sure I had lots of other men in our lives to, other families and things like that for them to look at. But that was probably one of the biggest challenges and the biggest scary things that I had to face as a single mom without the daily presence of a father in the home.
But you found a way to reach out to other men to kind of come alongside you.
Yeah, I did. So can I tell a funny story?
Absolutely.
Okay, so one time, well, both of my boys, like, they were getting all these magazines about knives and guns, and and we're like fixated with looking through these magazines and finding what they wanted and wanting to order these ninja stars to throw and all this stuff. And I was like, oh my gosh, are they going to be murderers? Oh my gosh, oh, is this normal? I mean, it was like continual because I didn't want to freak out in front of them, right? But it was real, and I was really worried about it. And so we had a family over for dinner one night, and I pulled the father aside and I said, hey, my boys are doing all this and da 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 da. And he said, Misty, they're boys. It's normal. And I was like, okay, but I didn't know that. And I needed someone to help me understand what normal was. There was another time that we had young men, like college age men, coming to our house, and I'd feed them and stuff like that. And when they'd come, my boys would just pounce on them and they'd wrestle, and I'd be like all the time, worried. And finally, one of them, actually, he was from Africa, and he sat me down at my kitchen table and he said, Misty, your boys need to wrestle. It's okay. It is their love language. And I said, really? He said, yes. I was like, okay. So things like that. I mean, my boys would have just been nervous wrecks if it hadn't been for these other men speaking me down off the cliff. So, yeah.
Well, so then the next interesting question is, you go from these 22 years of not having, I mean, I'm sure you had relationships in that time, but you did not have a marriage relationship. So 22 years, and then you go, tell us about how the shift in thinking went that created that, and how that's worked for you.
Great question. Thank you for asking. I just want to say that when I became a single mom, my kids were 2 to 13, okay, all ages. And probably within the first, I would say, 6 months of, being a single mom, I made a determination between me and the Lord that I would not, I was not going to date while raising my kids. And I thought about the ramifications of that. I thought about, trying to bring someone else into, and it just was overwhelming to me. So I made that determination. And so my youngest son was probably 16 or 17 before I really started to open up the possibility to dating, maybe remarriage. Now, it wasn't that I didn't want to be remarried. I loved the idea of having a good relationship, marital relationship with a man. I just thought there was something beautiful. So it wasn't that. I just knew I couldn't deal with all of it. I knew my own frame. So I didn't date a lot at all, but I always knew it was, I wasn't in the world to date just to date. It was kind of like, someday I would like this to end up in marriage possibly. And so anyway, it was scary. And, because most men my age have come out of a relationship also. And so you've got two families you're thinking about, you know, blending. Even though our kids are grown, it's still two families blending together. And there's a lot of complications and a lot of things to think about. But I think there was a lot in my single life that really prepared me to step into marriage with a much more grace. And really appreciating and valuing the differences of a spouse. And I think about my previous marriage, and I was like, man, that poor man that I was married to, I was always trying to make him into what I thought. And, you know, now through age and wisdom and learning and raising children, it's like, wow, there is a beauty in differences, and I value and appreciate. And that's a really healthy perspective to bring into a marriage.
But to like have that long of a time period, was that difficult to move into that situation?
Yeah, no, I don't think so. You know, and you know, again, that's a good question. And I think both of us had those concerns, like, what's this going to be like? Is the transition going to be easy? You know, he had been single, I think, for 8 years, 7 or 8 years. So not as long, but had still, but Keith, I think the thing is we were both very content and comfortable in our singleness. And so it was a very conscious choice. It wasn't like, I need this person to fill this gap in my life. And so we really get to experience the two becoming one. And that's a lifelong journey, but it wasn't hard. And I think that's, again, because of the maturity level that we both had. We're both a little older, you know, a little wiser. And we both counted the cost before saying yes. And I think that was really important because, again, like I said, we were both very content and satisfied and whole in our singleness. And so I think that helped stepping into being married.
You mentioned the wisdom that comes with age, helping a lot. Was it all natural, or did you have to actually like work on it or work on yourself in the meantime?
I am continually working on myself, Dawn. And so, yes, I think some people carry a natural wisdom. I have a daughter that is just illuminates wisdom, but it's wisdom that says, I am not altogether lovely. I need some work here. And we need to refine these broken edges and smooth out the rough spots. So, yeah.
Yeah, there is so much in your story that talks about, I needed to reach out, I needed help, I needed guidance. Like, kind of this part of the wisdom you talk about is realizing there's a wealth of wisdom outside of myself that I can tap into.
Mm-hmm.
And the introspective, or the ability to be introspective enough to know I need help to help my boys become men.
Mm-hmm.
I need help to learn how to be in a relationship again after all these years of being single. You don't get that way if you're so set in your ways that you can't admit that you need something.
Mm-hmm. Or if, like so many single moms are, if we're so isolated.
Right.
And, you know, if we're not realizing, I think one of the biggest things, you know, we do as an organization is we help women see that they have a need, that they need help. and then we provide the resources, because I don't know why, but our culture tells us that independence is the highest thing that we can attain to. And really the ultimate level, the ultimate height of maturity is interdependence.
Mhm.
And that is knowing that we need others, knowing that it's okay to lean into other strengths. And that's the highest level of maturity.
Absolutely.
One thing that strikes me about something you said earlier about the marriage relationship is you both having all this wisdom and like not needing to be married, but wanting to be married. So the other side, tell us about, like, as we all, grow older, we become kind of more set in our ways.
Mm-hmm.
So then joining with someone else can be amazing as well as challenging. Have you found that to be true?
Oh, absolutely. We tell people all the time, we almost didn't get married because we couldn't decide on the area rugs to get. Because we are about as different as night and day. I mean, and and so yes, it is very challenging to um, be in the same space all the time with someone who thinks different than you do, who responds different than you do, who speaks, a different language. It's like I have a daughter who was an English major and she's married to a mathematician, and I think, how do they even speak the same language, right? And so yeah, there are challenges all the time. And again, that was part of counting the cost, knowing that we're stepping into something that is going to be challenging, but as we continue to persevere and learn each other and learn how to communicate with each other and listen to each other, it's only going to get better, so.
Right. Well, and finding community as a single mom is so important, but it also strikes me that it's different than finding community as a married couple, isn't it?
It
Has that been a
is.
challenge as well?
Yeah, especially with COVID. Now, I do want to say, there is this passage in the Bible, and I don't know where it is. I don't know the address, but it talks about David's mighty men. And the first year after they got married, they were required to stay home with their wives. They couldn't go out to battle. And I used to quote that to people getting married all the time. The first year, you need to focus on your marriage. And so with COVID, and I also stepped down from the daily operations of the nonprofit. We hired an executive director. So all that happened in 2020. I literally was given the opportunity to put that into practice, to really be at home and be present while we built a home together, and that's what we're doing. We're building a home together. And that takes time, that takes intentionality, that takes emotional, spiritual energy and stuff. And so, yeah, it's very, you have to be present for that. Building of a family together.
Right. And just new friendships, couple
Yeah.
friendships.
Yeah. Oh, that's right. That was your question. See, I lost track of your question in all
That's all
my
right.
rambling. Yes. And so in light of that, we do have couple friendships. We haven't found that ongoing community, but again, because of the way I'm wired, on our little social calendar, at least twice a month, we have couples that we have over for dinner and play games. We get together. I just planned a axe throwing outing with 5 other couples. And so I'm the party planner. and because I know the importance of community, I I really take initiative and value that. And so, but we're still kind of looking for that church community to settle into too.
So Misty, it strikes me as interesting that is a couples activity that you go axe throwing, hoping that everyone's in a good place in their relationship.
Yeah, I never thought about that, Keith.
I guess it establishes a hierarchy in the relationship, right?
Yeah.
Who throws the better axe?
I know, right? Right.
Who not to mess with?
Right. It was a very interesting evening. So,
well, something that I know from talking to you and just talking to you now and talking to you before is you have an incredible heart, because that heart wants to give to others, and it also wants them to like feel loved and cared about. And that takes a very special person to want to create that. And so I know that's true of you, because to do all those things, it takes tremendous heart. So I want to acknowledge that, and then just say, like, as we're getting close to the end, there's people that will want to get in contact with you and find out more about what you're doing and about you. What are ways that people can do that?
Oh, that's good. Like I said, I've pulled out of the operations of the nonprofit, and they can definitely look up the nonprofit if they're wanting, if there's single moms or people that know single moms and or want to get involved to volunteer. And that's the Single Mom KC. For me personally, I think the best way to get a hold of me is, I'm trying to think, I've got like 3 emails going off on my head. Probably Misty, which is my first name, and then it's Mountain of Myrrh, and Myrrh is MYRRH.com. And, like I mentioned, or Dawn mentioned at the beginning, I am actually developing right now a leadership coaching that is called Lead Her Coaching. And it is really to help women get in touch with the leader within. And as women, we need to know how to lead ourselves and lead our family and lead others. And so even if people want to have a conversation about that, to learn more about what that looks like and some of the things that I'm doing there, they can use that email address to get a hold of me. So
fantastic.
Thanks.
Misty, thanks so much for being with us today. We are truly honored that you took the time to spend with us. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Dawn and Keith. I appreciate what you guys are doing.
Thanks, Misty.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Fitz Rock Podcast. The music you are hearing is Swim with Wild Musical Instruments by Your My Muse. Copyright 2019 and licensed under a Creative Commons Attribution Non-Commercial License. Until next time, have a fantastic life.